Hyaluronic acid is a beautiful, luxurious humectant that's brilliant for dry skin, but due to its high price tag, it can be a bit intimidating to work with. So if you have been wanting to start formulating with this gorgeous, luxurious ingredient, but haven't been sure where to start, this video is for you. I've compiled 7 of my favorite hyaluronic acid formulations from the last couple years, plus answers to common questions like how much hyaluronic acid you should use in your formulations, what type you should purchase, how to combine different weights of hyaluronic acid, how to use it in anhydrous formulations, and why your hyaluronic acid gel didn't gel. We're going to kick off with 3 different hyaluronic acid serums, one with just 3 ingredients, one with 5, and one with 8. Each formulation builds on the one before it, so the first serum is super simple, and then we'll dress it up with some other awesome skincare ingredients for added moisturizing, skin soothing, and general fabulousness to create the other 2. Let's get making. Before we can mix up serum number 1, we need to transform our gorgeous hyaluronic acid into something we can easily work with. When you buy hyaluronic acid, it's a dry, white powder that likes to clump up when mixed with water and takes a good long time to fully hydrate. And this is a bit of a pain in the backside. So to streamline our formulating, we'll make a biggish batch of a super simple stock solution, so we only have to wait for it to hydrate once. The ingredient list for this simple solution is as short as possible because we want this stock to be as basic and therefore as versatile as possible. I've got a whole video on how to do this, but the general gist is weigh out 1 gram of hyaluronic acid powder, and I'm using low molecular weight. This will give us a 1% hyaluronic acid solution that will be moderately viscous. Combine 98.5 grams of distilled water and half a gram of liquid Germol Plus, and then sprinkle the hyaluronic acid powder on top. Cover your beaker tightly and let it sit. I don't bother stirring at this point as I don't want to lose any precious hyaluronic acid powder to a stirring stick, and it doesn't end up being necessary. Leave the mixture until you can't see any dry powder. This will take a while. I usually leave mine at least overnight, though often closer to a full day. Sometimes 2. It depends on how distracted I get. I used a watch glass as a cover here, but I prefer cling film for a proper seal. Once you've got a clear mixture, give it a stir, bottle it up, and then give that bottle a shake for good measure if you're worried your solution isn't fully uniform. Label it, and we are ready to make some hyaluronic acid skincare awesomeness. You'll have enough of this stock to make all 3 formulations today and have plenty left over for other creations. Our first formulation is as simple as it gets. You'll only need 3 ingredients. It's really just a hyaluronic acid solution with a low but effective concentration of hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid is one of the most expensive ingredients we work with, so we want to use just enough to get the benefits without motoring through our formulation budget. To start with, you'll need 12 grams of that 1% stock solution we just made. This finished serum will contain 0.2% hyaluronic acid, a level that is effective and thankfully pretty affordable. Learn more about this with the free partner blog post. To dilute the stock down to that concentration, you'll need 47.76 grams of distilled water, and then to top off the preservative, since we've already got a bit of preservative in the stock, you'll need 0.24 grams of liquid Germol Plus. Stir to combine, and that's it for our 3 ingredient formulation. The finished serum is a pretty thin fluid. I recommend packaging it in a bottle with a dropper cap or an orifice reducer. I'm using a 2 fluid ounce glass bottle from Voyageur Soap and Candle with an orifice reducer and an aluminum cap for all 3 of today's formulations. Okay, now it's time for our 5 ingredient formulation. This one adds 2 relatively common ingredients to give this next version more of a skincare punch and a serum-y feel. Our first new ingredient boosts moisturizing, softens the skin, stimulates regeneration, and is soothing. I love it. This fabulous ingredient is powdered panthenol. If your panthenol is a liquid rather than a powder, I have details on how to use that instead in the totally free Humblebee and Me DIY encyclopedia. The second new ingredient gives our serum more of a serum-y feel. The 3-ingredient version is pretty thin because there's not enough hyaluronic acid in it to give it much of a viscosity boost. And that is okay. Hyaluronic acid is expensive. Adding more to a formulation just to thicken it is a really pricey way to achieve something that can be done for a fraction of the cost. Kind of like using silk to make dish rags. It's also worth keeping in mind that if you're using a really low molecular weight hyaluronic acid, it won't thicken at all, so you couldn't use it to thicken it even if you had the budget for it. So to give this formulation a bit more body on a budget, you'll need a wee bit of soft xanthan gum. The rest of the ingredients are the same as they were for the 3-ingredient formulation. We've just got a bit less water to make room for these 2 new ingredients. Mix 0.18 grams of soft xanthan gum into 0.24 grams liquid Germall Plus. Add 12 grams of hyaluronic acid solution, 1.2 grams panthenol, and 46.38 grams distilled water. Stir, cover, and leave the xanthan gum to hydrate and work its thickening magic. Half an hour is generally long enough, but I usually get distracted for a lot longer than that. So after a dog walk and snack amount of time, give your serum a stir, bottle it up, and then give it a solid shake for good measure to make sure that the xanthan gum blobs break up and incorporate evenly. And that's it for the 5-ingredient serum. You can see it's a bit thicker than the 3-ingredient version, and the panthenol further amps up the skin moisturizing awesomeness. 2 down, 1 to go. The last serum we're making today contains 8 ingredients, so we'll be adding 3 more ingredients to the 5-ingredient serum we just made. Our first new ingredient adds a soft bit of all-natural scent in a really easy, gentle way. No solubilizer required. You'll just need your favorite hydrosol. I'm using rose hydrosol, but you could use any hydrosol you love the smell of. You could also use aloe vera juice or witch hazel here instead. Up next is a very underappreciated, underutilized ingredient, in my opinion at least. It is soothing, boosts skin cell turnover, it's a great moisturizer, and it's cheap! Allantoin. And lastly, for even more moisturizing goodness, you'll need a liquid hydrolyzed protein. I'm using hydrolyzed rice protein, but other awesome options include quinoa, oat, and baobab. You could also use a liquid water-soluble botanical extract instead. I think soothing calendula or calming chamomile would be lovely. They also won't give the serum a coppery color, if that is important to you. To make this last serum, mix 0.18 grams of soft xanthan gum into 0.24 grams liquid Germall Plus. Add 2.4 grams liquid hydrolyzed protein, stir, and then mix in 12 grams of each our 1% hyaluronic acid stock solution and your hydrosol of choice. Add 1.2 grams powdered panthenol, 0.24 grams allantoin, and 31.74 grams distilled water. Stir, cover, and leave the xanthan gum to hydrate and do its thing. Just like last time, you can package up the serum after 30-ish minutes, shaking for good measure. To use these serums, shake a few drops into your palm and gently massage into your skin. I use this formulation morning and night after cleansing and before any lotions or oil serums. Now that you know how to make a couple fairly basic hyaluronic acid serums, I wanted to take a moment to show you a couple different 1% hyaluronic acid stocks so you can see how their viscosities differ. So this one is made with hyaluronic acid that is about 800,000 to 1 million Daltons. This is generally what we call low molecular weight hyaluronic acid, and it's what I use the most. This stock is made with high molecular weight, 1.6 to 2 million Daltons. Notice how much thicker it is? And then this last one is made with super low molecular weight hyaluronic acid of less than 50,000 Daltons. Look at that, it's like water. So you can really see the viscosity of your solution is determined by the weight of the hyaluronic acid you use. So if your 1% solution is thinner than mine, it just means you used a lower weight of hyaluronic acid than I did. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Another difference you'll notice as you work with the different weights is that the higher weights take longer to hydrate. My high molecular weight stock took over 12 hours to fully hydrate, while the super low molecular weight one was hydrated and ready to go in about 3. So what do the different weights mean, and why does it matter? Broadly, it's the size of the hyaluronic acid molecule. Weights of hyaluronic acid are usually given in daltons. A dalton is a very, very small measurement for weights, very small, equal to 16,605 octillionths of a gram. When shopping for hyaluronic acid, it'll be described with a daltons range that looks pretty big, of like 200,000 to 500,000, but given how eensy-weensy a dalton is, it makes sense. The weight of your hyaluronic acid matters because different weights of hyaluronic acid have different strengths and weaknesses in skincare. Generally, the lower the weight, the more able the hyaluronic acid is to penetrate the skin, and the higher the weight, the less able it is. So higher molecular weights have been found to be better at reducing transepidermal water loss, while lower weights have been shown to improve skin elasticity and decrease wrinkle depth. I've linked to a fabulous post from Simple Skincare Science that's all about hyaluronic acid in the free partner blog post linked below, so definitely make sure you check that out to learn more. When you're new to formulating with hyaluronic acid, I recommend a low molecular weight one, or something in the 800,000 to 1 million Dalton range. From my research, this is a good middle-of-the-road option, and it's what we're going to use in this next formulation, which takes what we learned earlier and gets a bit fancier. It's sort of an alternate version of the last of the three formulas. It also uses 8 ingredients, but goes a slightly different direction with the inclusion of niacinamide for brightening. We'll begin by weighing 1.5 grams of propanediol 1,3 and 0.25 grams of liquid Dermal Plus into a beaker. Propanediol is a lovely low-tack humectant, and liquid Dermal Plus is our preservative. Up next, weigh out 0.05 grams of soft xanthan gum, add that to the beaker with the propanediol and liquid Dermal Plus, and stir thoroughly to combine. Soft xanthan gum is a new-to-me ingredient recommended by my patron Claire. It was a gift from Formulator Sample Shop, and I'm really enjoying working with it. I find it has a distinctly nicer consistency than not soft xanthan gum. That said, if you only have not soft xanthan gum, you can use that instead. This tiny amount of gum gives the finished serum a touch of body so that it's more serum-y than watery. Once the xanthan gum has been distributed in the propanediol and preservative, we can continue. Up next, you'll need 15.67 grams of distilled water. I've also weighed our pH adjustment, 0.035 grams of a 90% lactic acid solution directly into the water since it's such a tiny amount of ingredient. 20 grams of fragrant sweetgrass hydrosol scents this formulation. Sweetgrass hydrosol smells wonderfully of sunshine on long prairie grass in the summer, and I absolutely adore it. This bottle was a gift from Plants Power. You could definitely use a different hydrosol if you want to have a differently scented finished serum, or you can replace the hydrosol with more distilled water for an unscented final product. 10 grams of a 1% low molecular weight hyaluronic acid solution really amps up the luxury and hydrating factors of this formulation. And our last ingredient is 2.5 grams of niacinamide, also known as vitamin B3. Niacinamide is one of my favorite skincare ingredients. It has done wonderful things for my complexion, really helping reduce the occurrence of acne and brightening and evening out my skin tone. It also helps reduce inflammation, increase the synthesis of ceramides, and reduce transepidermal water loss. That is all of our ingredients, so put everything in the beaker with the xanthan gum slurry, stir to combine, and then cover it so that everything can hydrate and dissolve. Once everything has dissolved and the mixture is clear, you're ready to package it up. I packaged mine in a glass bottle with a dropper top, but you could definitely use a bottle fitted with an orifice reducer or a treatment pump instead. This 50-gram batch will work well in a 60 milliliter or 2 fluid ounce bottle. Just like the 3 serums earlier, I like to use this serum towards the start of my skincare routine, after cleansing, but before any oil-based serums or emulsions. You'll want to follow up a Hydra serum like this one with something that contains some oil to help lock everything in. And for that, might I suggest this next formulation. It's a gorgeous moisturizing face cream starring 2 superfood ingredients, Açaí berry oil and Goji berry extract, and of course, hyaluronic acid. If you don't have the same oil and extract I used, please feel free to swap them out for some ingredients you do have. I think argan oil or jojoba oil would be lovely alternatives for the Açaí berry oil, and calendula or chamomile extracts would be great swaps for the Goji berry extract. The heated phase for this formulation includes 4 ingredients. 1.25 grams of glycerol stearate and PEG 100 stearate emulsifies this face cream and is a huge part of the reason it is so light. Our star emollient is 8 grams of Açaí berry oil. Açaí berry oil is a really unique carrier oil with an unusually high palmitic acid content and great antioxidant activity. Now, if we stopped there with just those 2 ingredients, this cream would be so thin that it would split, so we need to add some body. 2 grams of cetyl alcohol boosts viscosity, improves slip, and contributes a gorgeous powdery skin feel. I've further boosted the viscosity of this cream with 0.3 grams of polyacrylate cross-polymer 6, also known as Sepamax Zen, which gives this formulation a bit of a gel cream feel. It isn't oil soluble, so it's not going to melt into the oil phase, but I like putting it in the oil phase because it can't clump there. It'll disperse and hydrate beautifully when we combine the heated oil and water phases later in the formulation. Our heated water phase also features 4 ingredients. 20 grams of a 1% low molecular weight hyaluronic acid stock gives this formulation fabulous hydrating properties. 5 grams of vegetable glycerin further boosts the moisturizing awesomeness of this formulation, and 1% of panthenol, also known as vitamin B5, adds both moisturizing and skin-soothing goodness. 57.65 grams of distilled water wraps up our heated water phase. The cool down phase also features 4 ingredients, and it is rich in antioxidants. You'll need 2 grams of vitamin E, also known as tocopherol, which is a potent antioxidant that helps protect our skin from environmental damage. I've also included 2 grams of black Goji extract, which is rich in antioxidants and helps boost the moisturizing properties of the cream. 0.3 grams of allantoin adds skin-soothing and protecting benefits. Allantoin is only water-soluble to about 0.5%, so I've calculated the amount to be soluble in the amount of water that's present in this formulation. There's more information on this in the Humble Bee and Me encyclopedia entry on allantoin. I've never had any issues with the allantoin dissolving or feeling shardy when calculated in this way. And lastly, 0.5 grams of liquid Germol Plus preserves this formulation. To make this formulation, begin by combining the ingredients for the heated oil phase and the heated water phase in 2 separate heat-resistant glass measuring cups or beakers. Weigh the water phase and write that weight down somewhere so that you can replace any water lost to evaporation during heating. Heat both phases through with a water bath. A simple flat bottom sauté pan or frying pan with about 1 inch or 3 centimeters of water in it will do the trick nicely. Simply pop both beakers in your water bath and put the water bath on your stovetop over medium-ish heat for about 20 minutes until the cetyl alcohol and the emulsifier have melted and both phases are the same temperature. When you're done with heating, remove the water bath from the heat and then remove your phases from the water bath. Weigh the water phase and use a bit of preheated distilled water to top it back up to that weight you wrote down earlier. Up next, pour the water phase into the oil phase. Give that a bit of a stir and then grab your immersion blender. Blend the emulsion for about 1 minute and then switch back to hand stirring. You'll need to be pretty diligent with the hand stirring until the mixture has gained some viscosity so it doesn't split on you. But once you have reached trace, you can set the emulsion aside and just kind of come back and stir it every 5 minutes or so until it has cooled to room temperature. Once the cream has cooled to room temperature, add a dollop of it to that little bowl with your cool down phase and whisk to combine. Once that mixture is nice and smooth, scrape it back into the big batch of lotion and stir to combine, and that's pretty much it. For packaging, this emulsion is thin enough to work in a treatment pump bottle, but it would also work well in a normal pump bottle or a squeeze tube. I think it's a bit thin for a jar or a tub, but that will work in a pinch. I used an airless bottle with a treatment pump cap from Bee to package mine. Use this face cream as you'd use any face cream, morning or night. For me, that means after cleansing and any watery serums like the ones we made earlier, but before sunscreen or makeup, if I'm applying it in the morning, of course. So that's the face covered, but what about body products? I will admit that the high price tag of hyaluronic acid means I often save it for use in facial products, but you can absolutely use it in indulgent hand and body formulations as well. This next formulation is a super hydrating but lightweight body moisturizer, and in it I show you how to do something I'm asked about all the time: how to combine multiple weights of hyaluronic acid in one formulation. You might think the best way to do this is to mix different dry hyaluronic acids together and then use that blend to create a multi-weight hyaluronic acid stock, but that's not what I like to do. Instead, for more flexibility and control, I recommend keeping all your stock solutions single weight and then blending those as desired to get the benefits of different weights of hyaluronic acid as it makes sense for each formulation. Now, let's get into this fun, wobbly formulation. You've heard of body butter, but what the heck is a body yogurt? Think of it as body butter's ultra light cousin, a fast absorbing and super slippy body moisturizer, low on rich oils and high in hydrating humectants. It is perfect for the coming summer months if you want all the moisturizing power of a body butter but none of the heaviness or greasiness. In this video, I'm going to whip up this sumptuously silky, Body Shop inspired strawberry body yogurt with oodles of wobbly goodness that vanishes on the skin faster than a Canadian summer. Plus, this simple formulation is super customizable, so prepare to get creative. Before we can get into the formulation, a word of warning. The end result can be sticky if you're not careful. Fear not though, because later in the video, I'll be sharing a sneaky industry trick to keep your body yogurt beautifully lightweight and non-tacky. Stay tuned. Let's get to the making, shall we? We're going to whip up a 300-gram batch today, and we'll start with the heated water phase. Our first ingredient is the cheap, hydrating one that makes up the bulk of the formulation, 179.39 grams distilled water. Up next, our first humectant. I've chosen this one because it's effective and low tack. Weigh out 15 grams of propanediol 1,3. To amp up the skin hydrating and luxury factors, you'll also need 60 grams of a 1% hyaluronic acid solution. I've used equal parts high molecular weight and low molecular weight hyaluronic acid solutions, but you can definitely use just one or the other. This next ingredient is our awesome gelling agent, which gives this product its wobbly thickness and slippy skin feel. 4.5 grams of polyacrylate cross-polymer 6, also known as Sepamax Zen. I've found this to be the magical concentration to ensure a soft, blendable product that rivals the Body Shop's. And I'll be sharing another sneaky tip for silky, non-sticky formulation goodness shortly. There are a few substitutions that can work in place of Sepamax Zen, so make sure you check out the free partner blog post for those. Up next is a fun part, adding a pop of pink to your product. Or really, this can be any color that strikes your fancy. I really like to match it to the fragrance and possibly the carrier oil as well to create a theme. So wrapping up our heated water phase is 0.015 grams of water-soluble red dye. Now, this amount is so tiny that you probably won't be able to weigh it out, so if you are using red 40 like I am, a single grain is about right. Don't worry if this looks super red, it will soften into a really lovely pink once we get emulsifying. Now for our heated oil phase. We'll begin with our emulsifier. I've chosen one with an ultra light skin feel that plays really nicely with the ingredient that makes this body yogurt all wobbly. Weigh out 4.5 grams of glycerol stearate and PEG 100 stearate. Please be wary if changing up the emulsifier. Believe me, I learned this one the hard way. Just feast your eyes on this appetizing, goopy body cheese. Ugh. I've seen this called the cheesecake effect, and it can happen if your emulsifier contains fatty alcohols, like the cetyl alcohol in this emulsifying wax NF version. Up next is our star emollient. I've chosen 27 grams of lovely strawberry seed oil, but this can easily be switched for another more inexpensive oil. I would recommend grapeseed oil for a similar effect, but go with what speaks to you. Other fun, fruity options include raspberry seed oil, apricot kernel oil, and blueberry seed oil. Yum! Combine the ingredients for the heated water phase and the heated oil phase in 2 separate beakers. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll know I often include gelling ingredients like Sepamax Zen in the heated oil phase to prevent clumping. With this formulation, however, I have found that there is so much gelling ingredient that clumping is actually less likely if you include it in the water phase, as that gives it more time to hydrate and activate. Before moving on, weigh the heated water phase, noting the weight of the entire lot. And yes, that includes the beaker. And so this way we can easily replace any water that is lost to evaporation during heating. For heating, you've got 2 options. I'll be using my lab hot plate on low, which is about 70 degrees Celsius, and simply placing both beakers directly on it. If you don't have a hot plate, you can use a water bath instead. So just place both heated phases in a wide, shallow pan with about 3 centimeters of water in it, and heat over low to medium-low heat for about 20 to 30 minutes. As everything starts to heat through, I wanted to take a minute to share some super exciting stuff we're doing over on Patreon. So for those of you who don't know, we select a new product every month to do a live breakdown of the ingredient list and formulation on a patron exclusive live stream. I guide my patrons through each and every step, from researching the ingredients to creating a starter dupe formulation. In fact, you can check out the replay and spreadsheets for the Body Shop's body yogurt analysis. That's available right now on Patreon to exclusive videos and up patrons. You'll learn what it truly takes to formulate and break down ingredient lists. So if that sounds up your alley, please consider becoming a patron by clicking the link in the description box below. Now, back to our yogurt. Halfway-ish through the heating, stir the water phase to ensure the Sepamax Zen is hydrating and incorporating well. It'll look like thick raspberry jelly at this point. Once the emulsifier has melted and both phases are roughly the same temperature, we are ready to proceed. Remove the beakers from the heat. Weigh the water phase and top it back up to its preheat weight, which you noted down earlier, with a bit of distilled water. And now for the fun part. Pour our water phase, our raspberry jelly phase, into the heated oil phase, stir the mixture, and then grab your immersion blender and blend for about 2 minutes. This is longer than I would usually blend a lotion, but because it's already so thick, thanks to all the Sepamax Zen, you need to blend it for quite a long time just to give it time to fully turn over and blend in any lumps of the Sepamax Zen. Be patient, don't pump the blender up and down, just watch as that mixture slowly turns itself over and becomes smooth and uniform. Make sure you scrape down the blender head every so often, as this really does get very thick very quickly, and we want to make sure there's no little lumpy bits of Sepamax Zen left being lumpy. Once the mixture is uniform, leave it to finish cooling. Once the body yogurt has cooled to roughly room temperature, it's time for the final step, the cool down phase. Make sure you're using an accurate scale for this, preferably accurate to 0.01 grams. This is where we incorporate our preservative, 1.5 grams of liquid Germall Plus, along with 1.5 grams of vitamin E to extend the shelf life of the strawberry oil. Remember when I said I had a top secret industry technique to avoid stickiness? That is where 6 grams of dimethicone 350 comes in, the key to a luxurious formula that doesn't feel sticky on your skin. You could also use cyclomethicone instead for an even lighter final product. It's worth noting that while they're not natural, silicones do readily degrade and have been continuously found to not only be very safe, but also beneficial to the skin by experts around the world. A natural silicone alternative like Lux Glide 350 is a decent substitution here, but I don't find the natural options to be quite as effective at detackifying. For a gorgeous, juicy scent, weigh out 0.6 grams of a strawberry-y, berry-y fragrance oil, but of course this can be just as easily switched out for another scent, because it's your creation after all. Incorporate all 4 cool down ingredients into the master batch, and voila! All that's left is to package it up into a wide mouth jar. I chose a clear container so you can see the body yogurt in all of its luscious pink glory. There you have it, a beautiful, lightweight emulsion that is your hydrating, must-have companion this summer. A little goes a long way, so this is sure to last you a while. My advice? Pop this on damp skin post-shower to lock in moisture. It'll absorb in seconds and leave you smelling of summery strawberries. You might have noticed I used a different and rather distinctive looking immersion blender for that formulation. It's my Bamix brand blender, and I love it so much, in large part because its narrower head makes it perfect for smaller batches. You can learn all about it in the equipment section of the free Humblebee & Me DIY encyclopedia. And just like that, it's time for our 7th hyaluronic acid formulation. This one is definitely the most advanced formula of this collection. It's a 5% lactic acid and hyaluronic acid exfoliating serum. This serum pairs gentle chemical exfoliation with some beautiful skin-soothing actives to reveal new, smoother, glowing skin. Because the final pH of this formulation is so important, this really isn't a formulation for beginners. You'll need to be comfortable testing and adjusting the pH to quite a precise level, and you'll need a digital pH meter. Now, no worries if you are not there yet. I've been formulating for over a decade, and this is the first alpha hydroxy acid formulation I have shared. You definitely don't need a decade of experience under your belt, but absolutely no worries about wanting a bit more experience before you dive into a project like this. If you'd like to try a similar product but you don't want to make it, The Ordinary makes a 5% lactic acid and hyaluronic acid solution that is, the same strength as this one and a lovely formulation. It's about $8, so it's really affordable and a great way to try some lactic acid in your skincare routine if you're not quite ready to make it for yourself yet. We're going to be making a 100-gram batch of this formulation, which is quite a lot of this product, but I wanted to make sure that you had plenty available for testing and adjusting the pH. Before you begin weighing out the ingredients, put on a pair of gloves and some eye protection. The lactic acid ingredient we are working with today is very acidic, and we don't want to risk it coming into contact with our skin or our eyeballs. The first ingredient we'll weigh out is the lactic acid. You'll need 5.55 grams of a 90% lactic acid solution. If your lactic acid is a different strength and check with your supplier to see what you've got, you'll need to use a different amount, adjusting the distilled water in the formulation as required. I've included the adjusted numbers for an 88% solution in the partner blog post, linked in the description box below. 20 grams of a 1% low molecular weight hyaluronic acid solution adds some really silky, luxurious, non-tacky, moisturizing goodness to the formulation. You'll need 61.35 grams distilled water. This dilutes all of the actives in the formulation to safe levels and delivers some essential hydration. To boost hydration and preservative performance, we'll need 10 grams of propanediol 1,3 or propylene glycol. Our next two ingredients are thickening ingredients, so they help give this formulation a bit of body, so it has more of a rich, serum-y feel and doesn't feel watery. You'll need 0.2 grams of soft xanthan gum and 0.05 grams of polyquaternium 10. If you don't have both of these ingredients, you can use all soft xanthan gum, though you want to use a bit more. The last two ingredients we'll weigh out right now are two skin-soothing actives to help counter any irritation the lactic acid could cause. You'll need 1 gram of panthenol, also known as vitamin B5, and 0.4 grams allantoin. The amount of allantoin is calculated to be within the limits of the water in the formulation to dissolve it, so I don't recommend using more. If you don't have these ingredients, you could consider using a skin-soothing water-soluble botanical extract instead. Please check the substitutions list at the end of the blog post formulation for full details. Start combining the ingredients by stirring the panthenol and allantoin into the distilled water and hyaluronic acid. In a second beaker, stir the xanthan gum and polyquaternium 10 into the propanediol 1,3 until smooth. Once the panthenol and allantoin have mostly dissolved, add the lactic acid to the water mixture and stir to combine. Pour that water mixture into the gum slurry and stir. You'll notice jelly-ish blobs forming straight away. That is normal, so don't worry. Now it's time to add our last two ingredients. Weigh in 0.45 grams of Liquid Dermal Plus and 1 gram of a freshly made 10% sodium hydroxide solution. This bit of sodium hydroxide solution kickstarts the raising of the pH, but we will definitely still need more. Cover your beaker and leave everything to hydrate and dissolve. A few hours should be long enough, but overnight is very convenient if you are making this in the evening. While we wait, let's chat about using this serum safely. If you're new to including alpha hydroxy acids in your skincare routine, please introduce this product slowly. I would start with using a few drops of this serum once a day, about 3 times a week, and work up from there to potentially daily use, paying attention to how your skin is reacting. Pay attention to your skin, looking for signs of irritation, and discontinue or reduce use if you notice that your face is unhappy. Do not use this serum on broken or otherwise compromised skin, and definitely keep it out of your eyes. I use the serum along with other watery, serum-y type products in my skincare routine, so after cleansing but before something like the salicylic acid anhydrous formulation or a face cream. Something else that's very important while you are using alpha hydroxy acid products is sunscreen use. Because lactic acid helps reveal new skin, using lactic acid makes your skin more sensitive to the sun. Therefore, it's very important to wear sunscreen every day when you're using lactic acid, and not just on the days you're using it, but every day while you're using it and for at least a week after you stop. If you live in North America and you find that the sunscreens you can buy are not awesome. They don't really make you love wearing sunscreen. I highly recommend checking out sunscreens from Japan. They're amazing. They're so much lighter, they're a lot more effective, and they are a true pleasure to wear. I've included some specific recommendations and links for even more recommendations in the partner blog post. Sunscreen is absolutely not a thing that you should be trying to make for yourself. I wrote an entire blog post about all the reasons why not, so that's also linked in the partner blog post. Please give it a read. Once our serum appears uniform and has noticeably thickened, give it a stir to check, it is time to test and adjust the pH. You'll probably think the mixture is a bit too thick, but don't worry, it'll thin out as we raise the pH. Check the pH by weighing 2 grams of the serum and 18 grams of distilled water into a small dish. Whisks to combine, this creates a 10% solution. Use your pH meter to check the pH of the solution, and you can learn more about the pH meter I have in the Humblebee and Me DIY Encyclopedia's equipment section. The pH of the serum will probably be around 2 to 2.5, and it needs to be as close to 3.8 as you can get it. So add small amounts of the 10% sodium hydroxide solution to the parent serum, stir and retest. Do this until the pH is in the 3.7 to 3.9 range. I've made a much more detailed video about testing and adjusting this formulation and this formulation in general as an exclusive video for my $10 and up patrons. If you'd like to check that out, please consider becoming a patron. Once the pH is where it needs to be, we can package it up. I'm using some 30 milliliter or 1 fluid ounce bottles fitted with orifice reducers that I purchased from Voyager Soap and Candle. The thickeners in this serum make the serum just viscous enough that you can shake out a drop or two at a time from the orifice reducer. Other good packaging options would be a bottle with a treatment pump top or with a dropper cap. Because all of these formulations use at least 20% of our 1% stock solution of hyaluronic acid that's mostly water, you might be wondering how on earth to include hyaluronic acid in DIYs that don't contain water. Things like Bobbi Brown's Extra Plump Lip Hydrating Serum and Charlotte Tilbury's Hyaluronic Happy Kiss Lipstick Balm. So check out this video next to learn how to put hyaluronic acid in anhydrous products with 3 different moisturizing lip oil formulations. The second one includes both hyaluronic acid and a special form of vitamin C to help boost collagen synthesis.